welcome back to Game Time Sports Podcast. But today we do not have a podcast for you. We have a little bit of a little bit of a shorter video. Just we're gonna talk about one specific topic for about 5-6 minutes. And make sure you tune into the actual podcast tomorrow night, Thursday at 7 p.m. Central Time. As always, I am Caden.
Alongside by Jace Perrett.
Oh yeah, we're both here. Um, and yeah, so this video is just gonna be a shorter video, just us talking about one specific topic. And
Yep.
Jace, why don't you let everybody know what topic we're talking about today?
Well, we're talking about a potential Justin Jefferson trade and a team that a lot of people are saying is the Kansas City Chiefs. This would be such an interesting development. It'd be like Brady to Moss, but in like the 2020s. I mean, Justin Jefferson needs a new contract. The Vikings are kind of a rebuilding team. They don't have much pieces on defense. They could lose Kirk Cousins in free agency. And by getting a couple of first round picks and maybe a good player like L'Jarius Sneed potentially from the Chiefs, who they just franchise tagged today, could definitely help out your rebuild. And if you're Kansas City, you draft well in the secondary. You've drafted Ward, obviously Sneed himself, Trent McDuffie. So no concerns there. But really, the concerns all year long were about the wide receiver position, which cost them a lot of times. And if you have a guy like Justin Jefferson, people aren't going to be able to cover him, Rashee Rice, and Travis Kelce every single play. Your offense is going to be firing on all cylinders if you get him. And for Kansas City, I think this is a possibility. I don't know how probable it is, though, because I feel like Sneed is probably going to stay with the team, but this is definitely a possibility that could happen. So don't be shocked if it does.
Well, the Chiefs have already cut MVS, which that gives them more cap space. And if they do trade Snead, that will give them even more money in cap space for Justin Jefferson, and that just giving. So we've seen Justin Jefferson by himself, and we've seen Patrick Mahomes by himself, and they are two of the best players in football. Obviously, last year in the NFL's top 100, voted on by the players, Justin Jefferson was two, and Mahomes was number one. So they're number
Yeah.
one and number two best players in football. And if you put those two guys together, it's gonna break the NFL. I mean, like you said earlier, it's like Brady, like Brady and Moss and
Yeah.
Rice and Montana. Really, those two incredible duos. You could add Mahomes and Justin Jefferson to that, and I don't know how long he'd actually be there, just because of money reasons. He's gonna want a lot of money as he's one of the best players in football. Yeah. So
Yeah.
on Twitter, DraftKings put out a graphic basically saying that a proposed trade would be the Chiefs would send a this year's first round pick, next year's second round pick in Marquez Valdez Scantling to the Vikings for Justin Jefferson. But obviously that can't happen anymore. MBS is not now in the picture. But I think that if they do trade, they'll be sending Snead over there because that would save them a lot of money. The Vikings, first of all, need those picks because they are kind of in a rebuild and they're trying to, get as many draft picks as they can. I mean, without Justin Jefferson last year, they still did okay. Obviously, they weren't great, but they still have wide receivers around that team. And the Chiefs really need a top tier receiver, and we really saw that
Yeah.
throughout the season last year. They never had a true number one, and Rashee Rice, I feel like, can be that guy. But I mean, really putting a guy like Justin Jefferson out there would be absolutely incredible.
Yeah, it certainly would, Kane. And I want to touch on something. I really don't think Marquez Valdez-Scantling would have any place in trade because he only had 179 yards last year as a receiver, And someone who does that, you're not going to trade Justin Jefferson for him, no matter how many draft picks you're getting, pretty much.
Yeah.
And really, I feel like Snead definitely what is a better trade candidate for the Chiefs as a player to put in. Because if you trade Snead a first and maybe a second this year and like a third and fourth next year, I think you definitely could give them because you're giving the Vikings a lot of picks starting their rebuild. They're probably going to get some compensatory picks for losing Kirk Cousins if they do. So if you're Minnesota, you think, well, we can start a new rebuild through this because obviously this regime hasn't worked, but we already have a good coach. We have a good defensive coordinator. We have just good facilities, things like that, and a good culture. So once you get good players, which the Vikings don't have too many of right now, they really could become a contending team within 4 years if they do everything right. But I think the more realistic option is they're probably going to give Justin Jefferson the bag, like some stupid 40 million a year contract, and that'll be the end of it.
Yeah, probably. But another thing, like touch on a little bit about you talked about MVS and how he didn't do much this year with 179 receiving yards. And I think he had one touchdown. And
Maybe.
if he went to Minnesota, he would have less playing time than he did here. Because obviously they have Jordan Addison and they have KJ Osborne and TJ Hawkinson and all
Yeah.
those guys over there. I mean, he's not going to get much playing time. I mean, he didn't get much playing time in Kansas City, but I mean, there he could even worse. Because I mean, on the Chiefs, he was our number was technically the Chiefs' number two receiver. Like on the depth chart, not statistically wise, but
No, no, not at
but
all.
but in Minnesota, he'd be like fourth or fifth or whatever. I mean, he would be well when it comes to targets, he'd be like fourth or fifth on that team, and that would not be good. But for the Chiefs, really giving up Snead would not necessarily hurt them as bad because you also have the All Pro cornerback, or not Jerry Snead, the All Pro quarterback Trent McDuffie, who is only in his going into his third season. So you still, and he was a first round draft pick, so you probably have him for another 3 years, which is incredible. And the Chiefs are really good, or have in the last few years been really good at drafting quarterbacks and
Yeah.
secondary players in later rounds, so they should be fine. I think they'd be okay. I think it's just really keeping Chris Jones if you really want to keep, because the way he can change a game, like we
Oh,
saw in the
yeah.
Super Bowl, how he pushed Brock Purdy into making those bad throws, and he can really disrupt the game. And he's a player that you don't really find in this league. I mean, Snead is pretty good, but we still have somebody who was in
Yeah.
the NFL's eyes better than him, Trent McDuffie. And the Chiefs also have a bunch of other young cornerbacks like Jalen Watson and um, Tremonti Connor,
Yeah.
all those guys, and so I think they'd do pretty fine without him.
Yeah, and the Chiefs aren't Super Bowl champions right now without Chris Jones. In fact, probably the last 2 years they aren't Super Bowl champions without Chris Jones. But without Snead, they probably could have been both years. I mean, maybe not this year with how much the offense struggled, but definitely 2022. And really, Trent McDuffie was the guy who came up bigger in the playoffs. And I mean, also Snead isn't perfect. He has a lot of he's a penalty issue. He has called for PI and defensive holding a decent amount. He had a terrible call against the Vikings where he threw his helmet off and the refs didn't call it. So really, he does have his issues. Where McDuffie's younger, I feel like has less issues. He may not be as tight in coverage, but he's going to make less huge mistakes, like giving up a 30-yard play due to just pass interference. And really, I think it would be the better decision to say, "Hey, we're going to trade you. We know the salary cap's increasing. Go get your bag in Minnesota, help them rebuild. We're going to take the best receiver that we can find in the NFL.
Like we were just talking about with McDuffie and Snead. So really, like I'd rather have McDuffie because I mean he is dominant rushing the passer. He'll blitz off the edge all the time. Always successful. And then in coverage, he's also really good. I mean, I'm not 100% sure on this, but he only gave up one touchdown or two touchdowns all season. Um, which is incredible. I don't think Snead gave up any, or he gave up like
He gave
one.
one in the playoffs, but zero in the regular season.
Yeah, so he gave one the entire year,
Yeah.
which is incredible. But that's not much worse. 2-1. I mean, it's
No,
really
not at all. I mean, it's 7 more points in the season. That's not going to kill you at the end of the day.
yeah. And he's younger and he's more versatile. He can do more things. He can play the
Oh, yeah.
slot. And being a outstanding slot corner, I would say is more impressive than being an
Oh, yeah.
outside guy
And he's
because
also outstanding outside corner, too. I
yeah,
mean, he's just a full package at that position, really.
yeah, he really does everything for them, and he
So awesome.
and they don't have to pay him for a while, so we'll see what
Yeah.
happens. But I think this trade would work out for the Chiefs and the Vikings.
Yeah, and I want to add one more thing before we get going here. I think ultimately this probably won't happen, but if the Chiefs can do it, they very well should. And the fact that it's even a slight rumor is something that we need to keep a big eye on because maybe it does happen.
Yeah, and if it does happen, you guys know you'll hear from us very as fast as we possibly can. We'll get it out. We're posting it on our
Yep.
Twitters, as you can see on the screen, which you've seen on the screen the entirety of this video. But you can go check out our Instagrams and Twitter, and we'll post as soon as we get the news, and we'll put it in the next podcast or make a video like this, just talking about it because I mean we got to get that out quick. You know, we can't wait.
No.
But this will actually bring us to the end of our video right here. As always, I am Caden and this is Jace. And we will catch you at the podcast tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Central Time. So we'll catch you there.